Morning folks, how are you? What a fantastic morning. Maybe a nippy morning. It's got buff on. Ooh, yeah boy, it's cold. Or it's chilly. A wee nip in the air, if that makes sense. So we've been speaking about taking responsibility for ourselves and our own actions. And I think personally that it's the only way to go from pain to power in terms of what we spoke about in the previous episodes. I think that for me is the most important thing, and empowering yourself to succeed. And it's all down to your vocabulary and what you tell yourself as well. I think that's important. So the third one, we talked about the two before, the two techniques before. And the two techniques before were, give me 2 seconds, just have a wee squinty. So the two before were taking responsibility means never blaming anyone else for anything that you're being, doing, having or feeling, and that's never. And then the other one was taking responsibility means not blaming yourself, and it kind of sounds contradictory to the first one. Morning, Anne-Marie. How are you today? Hopefully fantastic. So the third one is taking responsibility means being aware of where and when you're not taking responsibility, so that you can eventually change. Hopefully, we're going to all be honest with each other. And this is why I'm saying this. So it's to help us move on, taking responsibility for ourselves. So I talk about in the context of Dr. Susan Jeffers. This is Feel the Fear, guys. This is some of her history and what she talks about. So she goes on to say, it took years before I realised that the place I played the victim role most often was with men in my life. This is what she talks about. I remember being many evenings of complaining for countless hours with my girlfriends about the grief that men in my life were causing me. She used to go on about those jerks, self-righteous people. They're always doing the things that they take away for their happiness. One was always late, one was incredibly stingy, one didn't make enough money, one loved to play golf too much. Does this all sound familiar? And it applies to us as well, I suppose. And she went on to constantly complaining, and would you believe and all these things, it naturally came up in this conversation. It really was for her a moaning, groan society. I've been there as well. Usually that's the pub with your mates. We never seemed to tire of each other's stories. No wonder we fed off each other's martyrdom, and when we were obviously enjoying it as a result of it, and we always got to be right in these occasions. Morning, Alexander. How are you today? The payoff was that we didn't have to create our own happiness. We could simply blame everybody else and the men in their lives for not giving it to them. And during this time, she was certain that she was taking responsibility for her life. And she was making a wonderful living, and she had a great apartment. The only thing, and she was totally independent. But she wasn't really taking responsibility for her life itself, and was still expecting other people to make her happy, and finally learned that really the only person that's going to make her happy is, guess what? Her. It was me. I'm the only person that can make me happy. You're the only person that can make you happy, ultimately. And it's how you react to everything, I suppose. Now that she knew that when she was angry with her husband, she simply had to ask herself, what am I going to do with my life that I could be doing that I am blaming him for and not me for? Read that one again. What am I not doing in my life that I could be doing that I am blaming him and not doing for me? She now quickly was able to tune into what she wanted. Either it was her being obsessive about money, or feeling insecure, or not creating enough activity for herself, or expecting her husband to make her all the better all the time, every time. Morning, Joanna. And not handling the actual situation for herself and looking after her own well-being. Once she'd realised what she was doing, she got into the task of correcting it. As she corrected what she needs to be handled in her life, all her anger towards others disappeared. And really that's what it comes down to. It's your frustration within yourself. I've often found it myself. It's your frustration within yourself and not dealing with the current situation that actually takes out on other people, if that makes sense. Morning, Louise. So once she realised that, all her anger disappeared. And her daughter, Leslie, recently commented on how fantastic her marriage was. Wow. Yes. She did say that. It was amazing how perfect she had become and how to handle her life as a result of just taking responsibility and being aware of where she is and actually moving on from there. So the fourth one is taking responsibility means handling that chatterbox. That's that wee thing in here that keeps going on about you constantly. What makes you think you're so special? And then all the certain situations that you will all think up, and we'll go through 1,000 different reasons about why it's not going to happen, how it's going to happen, and when it's going to happen. But in actual fact, nothing's happened. And we put ourselves through that ultimate turmoil of doing that. This is the crazy little voice inside, the voice that tries to drive you crazy and often succeeds. I'll bet some of you don't even know it's there. I was personally shocked when I became aware of it. But I promise you that it holds the key to all your fears, really. It's that voice that heralds the doom and the lack and the losing. We're so used to its presence, we often don't even notice it's talking to us. If you're not aware of your chatterbox, it sounds something like this. If I call her, maybe she'll think I'm too pushy. Maybe if I don't call her, she'll not be interested. And then she goes on to say, but if I call him and his message machine is not on, I'll wonder where he is and it'll ruin my whole evening because I know he's out with another person. But if I don't call, I'll wonder anyway. Maybe I should go out tonight. He might call and he might think I'm out for someone else and he'll think I don't care. But if I call, he really won't know and he really won't realise that I'm interested and he'll probably start calling back anyway. I wonder why he hasn't called me. Do people go through this? Probably. It's thinking all the different things, isn't it? Maybe I was too cool this afternoon when I bumped into him at lunch. Maybe I should have been warmer. I wish I'd been wearing something more attractive. I look so fat in this outfit. Many times have people said that to themselves. And my makeup was terrible. Clearly I don't say that, maybe only at the weekends. He seemed a little cool. I wondered if it was because he heard I was out with another person the other night. Well, I don't know. I don't know what to think. I think he'd expect me to sit home and every night and wait for him to call. He has a lot of nerve if he expects that. The next time I see him, I'll ask him why he hasn't called. We were supposed to go to the movies this week. He didn't even remember. I'm going to confront him with his lack of responsibility. I won't be judgmental, but I certainly let him know how I feel. Have you ever heard yourself do that? This is that wee chatterbox in your head. It goes on constantly and constantly all the time in the background. And it really does do you. It really can do you a lot of good if you talk to yourself in the right way, but it really can be quite destructive if you talk to yourself in a different way, in a negative way. So you need to keep an eye on that wee chatterbox in the back of your head and make sure it doesn't go off on one. So finally, the fifth one for now. Taking responsibility means being aware of payoffs that keep you stuck. Payoffs, well, payoffs explain why we choose to perpetuate what we don't want in our lives. Once you understand payoffs, your behaviour will make you much more sense to you. So let me give you a few examples. This is the example of Jean. Jean was feeling horribly stuck in her job and wanted to desperately get out of it. She viewed herself as a victim all the time. Poor Jean. Her chatbox constantly played the if-only game. If only the job market were a little better, she wouldn't have a problem. If only she had better skills, there would have been more opportunities. What was really keeping Jean in her job? Well, what were her payoffs? By remaining a victim, Jean had clearly become comfortable. She didn't want to have to face the possibility of rejection in her search for a new job. Although she hated her job, It was easy. She knew that she could handle it. She didn't have to question herself every single day and her competence. She put in the hours and didn't have to expend any additional energy. The job was relatively secure. She'd become totally comfortable and in her comfort zone. We've talked about this before. Once Jane became aware of all her payoffs, she had at least 3 choices. The first was to stay where she was and continue to be miserable. The second was to stay where she was and choose to enjoy her job. The third was to choose to find a more satisfying job. What did she ultimately do? After recognising the payoffs and for what they were, she was able to break away and find a new job. As long as she remained in the victim mode, she was stuck. As soon as she realised she was choosing to stay because of the payoffs and not because of her if-onlys, she was able to move. So let's look at Kevin as an example. Kevin had been separated from his wife for 5 years. Although she had found someone else she wanted to marry, he was not able to tell his wife and children that he wanted a divorce. When the new woman threatened to leave, he sought professional help. The victim story was the chatterbox was telling him that his wife would kill herself because of this. His children would never talk to him again and his parents would disown him. Poor Kevin. He really believed all this on a conscious level and was paralysed with all this guilt. With the help of the therapist, it did not take him long to see the real problem was his own fear of letting go. Though he no longer loved his wife, she unconsciously represented a psychological place to go home to. And he was frightened to sever the tie permanently, and that was the payoff that was keeping him stuck. As soon as Kevin was able to see when his own irrational fear was stopping him, he immediately started proceedings to divorce his wife. Naturally, his wife did not kill herself because this was all in his mind. This was his chatterbox, and his children never stopped talking to him, and his parents didn't disown him. They wondered what had taken him so long. Would you believe that? They actually wondered what had taken him so long to do this. The point is that once he recognised his payoffs were the reason that he was choosing to remain in his marriage, his guilt disappeared and he was able to actually take action. And that, for most of us, is why we don't take responsibility. It's a chatterbox that holds us back. And from these case studies, you can see that the power that hidden in the payoffs can have in our lives. They're not difficult to discover once you realise they actually exist. It's simply a matter of sitting down with a pencil and paper and listening to them. And sometimes they are obvious to others, but masked from our own vision by our own thoughts and fears. It go on in a wee chatterbox in the back of our head. If you can't find them, ask a friend to help. It's often an objective opinion because you can't see the forest for the trees. I can't either. So sometimes asking someone else is a better way forward in order to see clearly what you need to do to succeed and take responsibility in your own life. You might be surprised to discover that your friends know more about your motives than you actually do yourself. Amazing. And I'll see you tomorrow at 7:30. Watch out, we're doing a live broadcast, our new television show at 9:30 right across multiple channels today. So if you're in about in the area, log on and I'll see you then. Ask a question. It's Neil Bird of Cara Mortgages today is going to be the special guest and I'm the host for today. And I'll see you tomorrow at 7:30 or I'll see you at 9:30 on our live television programme. And see you later. Bye for now.